Hey, Adrian, so did you watch all those episodes of Alf I told you to watch, or?
I mean, I'm old enough that I watched them when they came out, so there's that.
Yeah,
But
but
are we talking about aliens today?
no, it's Monster Fangs. We're talking about Alf, the horrible monster, right?
Yes.
Fuck, I got a bunch of Wolfman stuff behind me.
Oh, what are we gonna do? I mean, I've got this guy right here. He's like, "Mm."
Monster Fangs.
Better or worse than Twin Peaks?
Is it better or worse than the Wolfman? That's the real question.
Dun dun dun.
So ironically, clicked this video thinking we were going to talk about the fucking Wolfman 2025 edition. And not a lot to say about it, actually. We have five werewolf movies, and the Wolfman is the least interesting.
Not the
of
best
all of them.
one.
Yeah, I mean, another day, another Blumhouse movie. That's what I say. Yeah. These movies are so cheap. They're so quickly produced. I mean, it's like The Asylum, but the little bit more spit, put into the polish, right?
Will say it was better than The Beast Within. So that bar wasn't that great, though.
Is that the one with Jon Snow?
Yes, that's the one with Jon Snow.
That's a boring fucking movie. You should watch it, though. I mean, just watch it. I'm gonna flash it up here,
Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, this is the second of these fucking movies to come out since my true love, The Dark Universe, died. The Dark Universe, of course, was Universal's ill-fated, pipe dream of creating an interconnected action movie universe in the vein of what Marvel does and what DC tried to do with that Snyder stuff, but featuring the classic Universal monsters like, the Wolfman and Dracula and the Frankenstein monster as superheroes. And they got one movie in and it died. It was written and probably directed by famous Hollywood hack and wrecker of Star Trek, Transformers, Spider-Man, and a lot of other things named Alex Kurtzman. He's a horrific fraud. Please at me, Alex Kurtzman, because fuck you. You suck. You suck. You suck. You're worthless. You're garbage. They were very presumptuous with the Dark Universe. They were going to do a Bride of Frankenstein movie, which is my favorite movie of all time. They were going to make The Bride of Frankenstein a femme fatale, I guess. It was a wild time, and DC was doing their thing, so Universal was like, well, what do we got? We got these dusty old monsters from 100 years ago. Let's turn them into, lovable superheroes that we can make getchkas of and action figures. I mean, I have the Wolfman here. He's pretty great.
He's pretty fantastic, actually.
He's in our regular logo, not the horrible Alf one I probably made. Anyway.
It wasn't the painting.
The Dark Universe died pretty fast, pretty hard. It was a massive bomb. It was a terrible movie. And so Universal was sort of like, well, we think people like this stuff. So they handed the keys to Blumhouse. And the result is 2020's Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss, who you might know from Handmaid's Tale.
And Michael Dorman, who was in The Patriot, not the Mel Gibson one.
Yeah, he's the one that got arrested by the cops and said a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff, right? Michael Dorman.
Well, no, that would be Mel Gibson for sure.
Yeah. Mel Gibson was in The Patriot, right?
Wrong Patriot.
What's the difference? So we got The Invisible Man, which was not connected to anything. It did not have an embarrassing lead into another movie or something. And finally, 5 years later, we get The Wolfman.
We did get that.
They called it The Wolfman.
But they separated the words. I know, it's really confusing.
Yeah, the original, it's 2 words.
Okay.
Then in the remake, the 2010 movie, it's one word.
I know.
Then in this fucking movie, it's 2 words again, so...
Okay.
Get your brand integrity together, Universal, Not happy. I'm fucking pissed, Have some fucking respect for the Wolfman. Yeah, so, none of the hallmarks of the Wolfman are in this. So, we're gonna have another video behind Patreon where we talk about the classic Wolfman, and probably the 2010 one because I love it. I think it's a great movie. Fuck you. Fuck haters,
Well, I used to be a hater, and then I rewatched it and realized I just got butthurt by a whole bunch of CGI.
Yeah.
But that movie is beautiful. It is beautiful. I was wrong. I can honestly say, totally wrong. It's a good movie.
The CGI is very spotty, but it's nice to see a gothic horror movie with a tragic character and, the glory of
Actually, it's pretty.
Victorian England at night with the fog and the buses and the full moon. And the Wolfman, for my money, that's the Wolfman with his claws and his fangs. He's frightening when he's walking. Yeah, great movie. We'll talk about it in detail in the Patreon video, but, regardless, we're here to talk about the superior, the newer, and therefore better, as Tim Heidecker would say, the Blumhouse, so, whatever, the Wolfman, what do we have? We got some guy named Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner, who was in Apartment 7A. Julia Garner is great. I mean, she's not so great in this movie. I mean, it's not her fault, but...
No, and Chris Abbott can actually, he was in Possessor, which was David Cronenberg's daughter, and that movie's, mind-blowing and crazy.
Sure.
He can act, but this movie...
So it's not a bad movie. The frustrating thing about it is, it introduces this concept of paternal trauma, right? Where
yes.
you see little Christopher Abbott. I don't remember the character's name. I don't really care. It's not important. Some guy. He's a little boy. He has his dad. His dad's teaching him about hunting and hunting and gun safety in the woods, and something horrible happens and you don't get to see it. We don't even cut back to that. It's gone. And then you have this fascinating gender role reversal where the dad is stay at home. He doesn't have his job. And Julia Garner is the breadwinner.
I just had to sneeze.
Julia Garner is a journalist, and there's some tension between them, but the movie edits it out. It's very weird. And when they get a letter in the mail saying, your dad died, come get his creepy country house where the Wolfman was seen, they go out there and, well, whatever, nerd.
Oregon. Justin's gonna love that.
The nice hillbilly that's driving them around gets torn apart. It's pretty brutal. And the really cool thing about this movie is all the effects are not just in camera, but they're all legitimate practical effects. No CGI for the werewolves, which is unheard of.
Especially these days.
Some of the movies we're going to talk about, they're all movies that we love, but they use CGI. They can't help it. They can't help it. They use CGI. And this movie committed to not using any CGI for the werewolf. As someone who loves werewolves, love it. Love to see the airbags expanding to show the body growing, the fangs shoot down, the eyes change with a camera effect probably. Yeah, it's great stuff.
The
fingernails extend. It's really cool. And ultimately, my real issue with the movie is that it doesn't commit to any themes. It has a theme about family. It's not too interested in it, at the end of the day, I was happy to see a cool movie where two werewolves are fighting in the kitchen, and the wife is stabs the one with a knife, and it's all real, it's all happening, and it was all one take. That's the kitchen sequence. It was so cool. There's also a bit where the father, because he's turning into a werewolf slowly, he's unable to understand what his family are saying to him. He's not processing language anymore. So he just hears them garbled. He can barely see them at times. And there's some cool camera tricks where they're all standing around and the dad is the only one lit up because it's just him in the darkness. He's alone.
I really thought the camera work was beautiful. What they did with the truck crash and the guy falling out before he gets ravaged by the werewolf and everything, that was so weird and beautiful, and it reminded me of Alfred Hitchcock, Vertigo. The amazing thing where he's as he's changing, he starts seeing the world differently in different colors, and it's lit differently, and people's eyes look different. I thought that was magical, actually. I thought it was really beautiful. It was the color. I'm a sucker for colors, so I just thought that was amazing.
You're a painter. I
am. I mean, it shows.
Yeah, I interrupted you in the middle of your painting to shoot this dumb video. No, you're right. That's the really good stuff about the movie. The problematic stuff to me is just, it's not really interested in its themes. It was cut down. It was very short. And, there's a bit where the dad seems like he's going to go off on the daughter at one point. He has a very similar freak out when they're in the city. A weird guy comes too close to her and he freaks the fuck out. Mm-hmm. And that goes nowhere. There's no payoff to that. I mean, I suppose Daddy becomes a werewolf and they have to shoot him. Spoilers. I don't care. It's a fucking Blumhouse movie. All these movies are the same. They're all cheaply shot. They are underwritten. They're underproduced. And when they're competent, you're like, well, that was decent. Cool. It's the Illumination of horror movies. It's it was okay. And I would be a lot nicer to it, except Adrian went and dug up a bunch of fucking incredible werewolf movies from the past decade. So
because I'm actually within like the last 5 years, because I'm cool like that. It was an accident. It was a happy accident. But yeah, I will say that this particular werewolf movie did something interesting, and it took a lot of the supernatural elements out of it.
mm-hmm.
So it treats it like at the beginning, you know, you get this whole blurb that's written about how it's really like a virus that changes the humans into, you know,
Yeah, I know.
the wolf face.
They wanted to have their cake and eat it too, because he does literally turn into a werewolf at the end, you know?
Yeah. They also totally disregard the whole full moon thing. That's a thing.
Well,
because he turns during the day, because at the beginning during the hunting thing, there's no like adhering to folklore. So I did find that interesting.
They didn't care.
They really did not care.
I like that the werewolves had the meth mouth, you know? I mean, going with the Appalachia theme, I don't know.
It's Oregon.
their gums and their teeth were exposed. I don't care. It's still rural America. I mean, whatever.
I know.
Same diff. I mean, whatever.
When
it's the most notable thing about the movie. There's great gore. I mean, there's a bit where the Wolfman gets stuck in a bear trap. I won't spoil how he gets out. It's awesome though. Yeah.
Brutal, and it was very animalistic, and it was like, you know, those old wives' tales that you hear about certain things, and I'm not going to spoil it either, but like,
right.
That was interesting.
So I'm kind of lukewarm on the movie. I am a bit judgmental, but it is really good. I would recommend watching it on streaming. You know, if I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it, out of 4 stars, I'd give it what I call the Leonard Maltin. It's where you give it 2.5 stars because, you know, it was just a film, you know?
Yeah.
Pretty good, though, you know? I mean, by the standards of movies that get released these days, probably a 3-star movie, honestly. It's pretty
entertaining.
I liked it. I thought it was cool, you know? Let's talk about a better movie, Werewolves Within.
Dun, dun, dun.
Directed by...
Dun, dun! I don't even like him. It's fine. It's Josh Rubens, guys. Josh Rubens directed Werewolves Within, who also directed one of my favorite movies called Scare Me. It is one of my favorites. This one takes the dark humor to like a whole other place, and it's more campy and more silly than Scare Me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Scare Me is great. Scare Me is just 2 writers stuck in a house together telling each other stories, and there's non-diegetic noises that accompany their stories, and it starts to bring you into it. It's a really clever movie. This movie is actually... It's funny. This is one of several movies that has the Ubisoft logo. You know, that Ubisoft, you know, the Rayman Ubisoft.
Mm-hmm.
It's... I think the game is like a VR game. Check it out. It's super cringy and cartoonish looking. It's probably great. I'm never gonna play it, but regardless, this movie's basically like a little whodunit. Who is the werewolf? You know, if you're like me, you'll probably guess the twist really fast and the entire structure of the movie. But this is one of those movies where the adventure is better than the destination, or is it?
It's the wit, the banter, like. It's just flying so much, and it is so funny.
Well, hang on. All you fans of I Think You Should Leave, Sam Richardson's in it. You know, this guy right here. Yeah. Also, he did Melania Weintraub a solid and cast her, you know. She hasn't been seen since her Squirrel Girl thing got killed, so. I thought Marvel put her in cryogenic storage for, you know, when they feel like doing Squirrel Girl, you know. So,
she's very cute.
She's adorable.
And she's very charming.
Yeah, I'm trying not to make any man comments, but she's a very nice lady. You know?
She is a very nice lady.
And I will say,
Mimi Rogers is also in it. And Mimi Rogers, for those of you who are familiar with like Ginger Snaps, she plays the mom in Ginger Snaps. And she is equally, but probably a different kind of kooky in this one. But it's entertaining. She was also married to David Duchovny once upon a time, so there's that.
Oh, well, that's cool. I mean, you know, we should all marry David Duchovny eventually.
David Duchovny, why don't you love me?
Wacky, dumb characters who are just like existing in this like bizarre little town, and you kind of get into it. It's really fun. And my favorite thing is, of course, besides Melania Weintraub's adorable acting, is the werewolf. The werewolf is delightfully classic. I will not show it here because that would be a spoiler, and we don't. Well, we do spoil.
Oh wait, we do.
I'm not going to spoil the twist of this movie because when you see what it is, you'll be like, oh, I knew it.
Fun still. It's still randomly, like, not randomly, it's very well thought out. Like, it's still fun. You know it's coming, and you don't care because, like, you're having fun. I don't know. I own it on DVD. Like, well, it's Josh Rubens, and I love him.
The execution, it doesn't quite stick the landing in any way. This movie, totally different, you know? It's a much more enjoyable, like, full rounded package, you know?
It's a fun romp. It's not something to take, like, super seriously, even folklore wise, and it doesn't matter. It's just fun.
So watch Werewolves Within on Shudder. Adrian found it on Shudder, and she owns it. But if you just want to stream it, Shudder is great, by the way. We're not paid by Shudder. Shudder, sponsor us, or I'll fight you.
That's my do or die. Like, that is the one streaming service that I will not live without. Like, that's like the line. Like, it's like I can do without Netflix. But Shudder is like non-negotiable.
Yeah, Shudder's cool. Shudder isn't as good as the real winner here, Tubi.
Tubi is winning. Tubi is actually winning, guys. Like, horror-wise, it's insane.
And you say horror, I mean, listen, Tubi started life as, like, the fucking Walmart, a bargain bin. And, I don't know, they've been shelling out for stuff. I mean, you can watch Alf on it, I think, I mean...
The most impressive film that I have found on Tubi, which is not werewolf related, but it is horror related, it's called A Field Guide to Evil. And it is like folk horror at its best. It's got all of these different stories from all of these different regions and all of this different folklore from around the world. And it is so beautiful and weird and creative. There's a goblin. Like, there's a story about a goblin. It is amazing. But ever since I found that movie on Tubi, like, if I want to see a movie, 10 to 1, it's on Tubi.
It's Tubi.
Bum, bum, bum.
My mother calls it Tubby because she can't read. Right. But yeah, no, Tubi has probably my favorite movie of this little adventure, this little werewolf adventure we did, Good Manners from 2017.
It was your favorite?
Well, probably not, but...
I didn't think it was. It was my favorite for a very specific reason.
It's quite good. It's quite
like
good.
The Wolf of Snow Hollow. The Wolf of Snow Hollow was your favorite.
We'll get there. That's next.
Okay.
But Good Manners was a Portuguese movie, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. It was really, really excellent. It's what? A lower class black woman. This takes place in Brazil. She takes a job with, an seemingly upper class white woman, living in Brazil, as her caretaker. And, the woman she's working for is pregnant, and she's taking care of her. She sings to her, and they end up engaging in a romance, these two women. And Adrian, do you want to take over? Do you want to talk about some of your observations?
Okay, so Daniel and I were talking about this earlier, and it's weird because at first it has this whole class dynamic where, of course, you have this woman living in this, very expensive apartment. She's pregnant. She seems to be living this kind of life. You find out later, she hires this woman to help her while she's pregnant and to, like, cook and clean. And then when the baby's born, she's going to help her with the baby because that's like the woman she hires is actually like a nurse or was a nurse and all of this stuff. And so it starts off with this class dynamic of like this woman being above this woman. But pretty quickly, they kind of even it out, and they're on almost like the same, like you find out some things about the upper class lady, and she's not really what she seems. And then you find out this woman over here is actually like very smart, and I don't know, like they're like equals, and they fall in love, and it's beautiful for the first half of the movie.
Yeah, well, the seemingly upper class woman has this tragic backstory where she was essentially, date raped, and then, she passed out, and when she woke up, like, there was a werewolf there in the car. And, the implication is, of course, the man who impregnated her, took advantage of her, is also a werewolf, And
her family sent her to the city to basically have an abortion,
right.
And they basically cut her off from her funds when she decides to keep the baby. So she's living, maxing out her credit cards, trying to figure out a way to live with this baby.
Yeah, there's a pretty like raw scene early on where she's using her credit cards and they're all declining. And like, that's what I really connected with the movie, because I thought it was doing one thing, and then it turns out that it's setting up like, a pretty nice like simulacrum of like the modern world, where you have these perceived clear divisions, white, black, rich, poor, right? Female, male, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Like, the intersectionality is all over the place. And, you have a wide diversity of, like, talents in the movie. Like, they sing songs throughout it. It's not a musical.
And it's beautiful. And the animation scene is so beautiful and artistically done, I thought. It was a really good way to, like, tell her story. And like, the seemingly rich girl who's pregnant, she's very much a child.
Yeah.
Like,
You see her like dancing and doing Zumba and all that stuff, and her caretaker sings her lullabies, and they're very beautiful sequences, but it's very like, what's happening here? And there's like this gorgeous scene where she wanders out at night, she's having her nightly cravings, but she's also a werewolf lady, and she eats a stray cat. And then,
just like Alf.
Just like Alf, exactly. It's true. No, Alf is a horrific monster. And then it hard cuts to her dancing Zumba and like singing and laughing. And it was like very stark. What I'll say about this movie is it's excellent. It is very long though. And my thing with it is that it feels like two very different movies. There's like a demarcation at like the hour and 15-minute point where I would recommend watching it in shifts if you're like me, because
I watched it in one day, but I got obsessed with the baby werewolf.
There is a baby werewolf.
And it's an animatronic baby werewolf. And guys, I'm going to tell you, it was the cutest thing on the planet. Oh my.
Well, I really wanted to grab this movie, the Howling 3, The Marsupials, because this movie also has a baby werewolf. This is a classic, by the way. This is from 87. The Howling series is we're going to have to do a whole video about that.
I met Sybil Danning, and she was probably one of the kindest, most amazing, beautiful humans, and she told me really fun stories about Christopher Lee. That one right there.
The star of... There's an actual good baby werewolf in Good Manners, and the second half of the movie, the second hour, because the movie's like 2 hours and 15 minutes, is about the child, and it's very good, it's very interesting, and it's ultimately a movie about, the title is Good Manners. I think good titles can ground a movie and provide context. The movie is about social expectations, social stratosphere or whatever, fitting in, and like, we have a little boy who's a werewolf boy, and she chains him up every full moon, and he just wants to go hang out with his friends on some nights, and he can't because it's wolf time, and ultimately, it becomes about, the fact that you can't keep kids safe and innocent and locked in the house forever, and listen, for whatever reason, society might reject you, and what are you going to do? Are you going to throw your child out? And I won't spoil the ending of this one. It's pretty good, though. It's excellent. The final frame is beautiful.
It was the most beautiful,
It's cool.
Oh, that was powerful. Like, the ending of that one actually really, really mattered, and as a mom, I can tell you, it punched me pretty hard.
Yes.
I thought it had a lot of, consistent with regular folklore, witch stories, vampire stories, werewolf stories, whatever. It's always the idea of the outsider, the other. Like, someone's not acting right, someone's this, we're going to shun them, we're going to, burn their house down, let's grab the pitchforks type thing. And I think this one handled that in such a powerful way.
Yeah, I think that it's important to point out that a lot of the movies we're talking about, with the exception, of course, of the Wolfman,
Werewolves, yeah,
the Wolfman 2025, Werewolves Within also doesn't really, but that's a great movie on its own merits. Yeah. All these movies, though, have something to do with like repression, societal agony, and being an outsider. You know what I mean? And that kind of primal just angst that werewolves tap into in a really cool way. If you look at, there's this like weird tradition of Jews playing werewolves. On Buffy you had Oz, right?
Seth Green. Seth Green, and I know you appreciate that.
Robot Chicken Seth Green. But no, it's definitely like a thing. And I mean, like, you look at Germanic fairy tales and it's like, don't go into the woods because you might get eaten by a monster. And, a lot of Yiddish folk tales, it's don't go into the woods because they're going to accuse you of killing Christian children and turning them into matzah and drinking their blood,
Yeah.
In fact, there was a Yiddish poem I came across, written in 1920 by H. Levick, which is a pen name. If you're a Jew, you're probably writing under a pen name, Although why it's Levick, I don't know. But regardless, it's about it's called The Wolf, a Chronicle. It is, I don't believe it's been translated into English, but it's basically about a pogrom that wipes out a Jewish community, and the only person that survives is the rabbi. And the rabbi is so tormented by grief and pain that he becomes a wolf. And he just lives in the woods. He goes feral. And, the Jews eventually return to the place where they had their settlement, and they build their town, and they're terrorized by this wolf, this vicious, ferocious wolf. They don't know anything about it. And on Rosh Hashanah, the wolf comes into the synagogue, comes into the shul, and, they're blowing their shofar, and they turn on him, and they attack him. They're like, stop it, wolf, why are you attacking us? We're doing our high holy days. We're all fasting. And the wolf turns back into a rabbi and says, I'm okay now, And, like, right there, that's a story about grief, about a generational trauma, This was written in 1920, 10 years before the Nazis took over, and probably a good long time before the Holocaust. But guess what? There were hundreds of years worth of pogroms in Europe, I've got relatives that came to America to get away from pogroms, not because of that opportunity stuff everyone talks about, because they couldn't fucking live as Jews, So, the Levick poem is just one example, really, of Jewish people making the werewolf their own way to express this kind of othering that they went through. And like these movies that we're talking about, not Werewolves Within, not the fucking
But the other ones, every single other one of them.
The others, yeah. We have two other movies, But I think it's important to note that, like, oppressed people, when they write monsters, they will put themselves into the monster's shoes. They will not be the person hiding from the monster, They will be the monster. Which brings me to My Animal, 2023 movie. This one was also on Shudder.
It is, because Shudder is magic. They actually just released it on Shudder this week.
Did they? Okay.
They did. I watched it. So I'm the weirdo that, like, I check every day what's new on Shudder, and if there's something that looks interesting, and that was it. And that's actually what got me. Well, I found Good Manners first, but after Good Manners, like, My Animal came up on Shudder, and I was like, yes.
Okay. Well, the thing about, like, My Animal and, like, Good Manners is a lot of the movies that I knew, Cursed, I don't know, Skinwalkers,
Ginger
Snaps, The Werewolf of London, incredible movie. All these movies are great. But here's the thing, they're all the same. It's like, people are out at night, they get bit by a monster, the monster dies or fucks off, and then they turn into a werewolf and they get shot by the police, lover, daddy, etc. Maybe some other things happen because we're referencing the fucking Wolfman and putting a twist on it, but they're all very much the same. These movies are radically different. My Animal is really cool. It follows a girl whose father and I think mother are werewolves.
I don't know if the mother is a werewolf. The father definitely is, because she kept telling her that she wanted her to be like her, but instead she was her father.
Yes. You're right. Right. Well, there's a really cool scene, and this movie is just like style.
It's a fever dream. It is a fever dream of a movie.
It's excellent. There's a wonderful part where the father tells her, like, the moon, I always just wanted to tear it out of the sky, and his eyes, they shine like animal eyes with the what is it called, the sclera?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, really cool scene. There's, she goes out with her friends, and they do acid together, and they kind of give you an example of what that looks like. And then later on, she hooks up with her one friend, whom she likes, and they have, like, a lesbian sex scene, but it's not, like, pornographic. It's more psychedelic.
Artistic and stunning, and the use of colors, like the violets and the blue and the red. And, it was gorgeous. Like, that was actually very, like...
Yeah.
Artistically inspiring to me. So there was that.
Yeah, and like there's a lot going on in that scene because, like, she's finding herself. She's leaving her. She's not just staying at home and doing the hockey thing. She's making a human connection and being accepted somewhere else. until she isn't, you know? And that girl turns on her, they reject her, and then her father, suffers, and her brothers and her two brothers turn on her, and she has no one. And then finally, she wolfs out, and it's almost cathartic when it happens.
It was totally cathartic in the best sense of the word.
Mm-hmm. It's a great movie, a lot better than The Wolfman 2025. A lot more interesting, too,
I did think the use of dreams, which they do in the same colors, and like the symbolism of the eggs, and all of that, and like her weird, awkward comments, which are like very like prevalent, especially at that age, or when you're trying to connect with somebody on any level. Like, it was beautiful and awkward, but it was the same as the fever dream before the acid. Even it was just gorgeous. I don't know, like,
great movie.
Those images are going to stick in my head for forever.
Great movie. I mean, seriously, I don't mean to kick the Wolfman too much, but, my thing with the Wolfman is just like, it's the same problem I had with A Quiet Place to Raise Kids. I got the title wrong, didn't I?
I think you got it appropriate, so we'll leave it there.
Okay. Yeah, where it's like your perfect Midwestern family, mom, dad, 2.5 kids, and then the spookities show up, and, daddy's got to man up, and obviously the Wolfman puts a little bit of a spin on it because it's the mom, but it's just like,
they all felt like, all the characters felt like they were made out of paper.
Yeah, they weren't interesting. Whereas like something like My Monster, I mean, the characters have... Something like My Animal is just, I mean, the characters have lives out, when the camera's not following them, they're doing things, they're thinking things, they're feeling, they're watching TV, and it's compelling, it's very atmospheric, it's the kind of movie I love, frankly,
And you care about the characters. Like, you legit, and even the mom, who is horrifying in certain ways, like way more than the werewolves, but also I felt sorry for her, and in her way, she was like trying, like when she finds her daughter at the door and brings her in, like, she is so horrible to her daughter most of the time. But then there are those moments where she is like, she goes into mom mode, and like, it made me cry a couple times. Like, it was very human.
Well, the thing is that the mom herself is a werewolf in her way. She's an alcoholic.
She's a monster. Yeah.
She is a monster, exactly. And that's what I love about the werewolf as a concept, because, the next movie we're going to talk about is very interesting in this respect. But, the only monster doesn't have to be the person sprouting fangs and fur, you know what I mean?
My son said something very interesting to me a while ago, where he asked if I ever came across like a werewolf or a vampire or a real monster. Because when I was younger, I wanted to be a monster hunter. And he asked me if I would kill a monster. And I was like, no, baby, I don't think there's enough magic in the world to get rid of anything like that was like that at this point. Like,
yeah,
I would just let it exist. And she's like, and my son was like, Mom, that's awesome, because I think humans are the real monsters.
Oh my gosh, there's an edgy take right there,
Yeah, dude, he just turned 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he reads The Witcher or Hellboy. I mean, because there are also monster hunters that don't kill every monster they come across,
I think humans, I mean, like, we're the monsters.
Yeah, the one monster I would kill, I have to say, is probably Alf. I mean...
Because he's the devil. Like, one cat killer, like, killing one cat, that's horrifying but acceptable. Like, you start eating hundreds of cats, I've got a problem with you, dude.
Well, it's like Megadeth says, like, if you kill one cat, okay, you're a murderer, If you kill, like, many cats, you've committed genocide. But if you kill all the cats, you're God now, and we can't have that, all right? I think
we do not want Alf as God, guys. That is not, like...
I mean, going on the Megadeth scale, I think they said that about cats. It might have been people, but whatever, right?
Is there a difference? I think cats are more human than humans sometimes.
I mean, Apollo is, the worst, but...
Moon is, like, the greatest love of my life.
Wolf of Snow Hollow, I think
Well, speaking about, humans being the monsters, let's get into it, because this was your favorite.
I think this is the winner. I mean, obviously, you probably prefer Good Manners because of its themes of motherhood. But the Wolf of Snow Hollow, it's the kind of characters that I love. I love tired, old, down on their luck, like male characters. Probably because that's how I see myself. I'm not really down on my luck, but
You're also not old.
Well, anyway, this movie is written, directed, and starring Jim Cummings.
Really?
Basically, it's another Twin Peaks setup, you know? It's a small town, there's a murder, and everyone's freaking the fuck out about it.
Well, and they have those weird, awkward conversations with each other. Like, all of the characters are, like, just very strange, but also very human. Also, of course, you have Robert Forster, who is in Twin Peaks: The Return. So that didn't help at all. It was also his last movie, guys. And
well, he's also in Uncle Sam, the classic. Don't watch it. It sucks.
I mean, he's in Jackie Brown too, but
he's in D-Wars, the Korean schlockfest, you know.
I love Robert Forster, and I'm sad that he's gone.
No, he's great. He's really cool. He's really great in this movie. He plays Jim Cummings' dad, and Jim Cummings is like Jim Cummings. Robert Forster's character is kind of Alzheimer's, but he's kind of like, yo, it was like Clint Eastwood back then, you know. We were all the good guys, and we were the bad guys, and his son is just like, man, talking about, bro, trying to catch the serial killer. And like the thing is like what the movie's really about. Like, okay, there's a werewolf, possibly, maybe killing women and dismembering them, right, in really grotesque,
gruesome, horrifying ways.
Jack the Ripper-esque ways, you know. This movie does like a Psycho thing too, where it introduces a main character and they get werewolfed, you know. They get, someone wolfs out, you know. But anyway, and the thing is that, like, he is under a lot of pressure to catch this guy, and he starts freaking out on his team, his deputies, and, you know, they're making jokes, they're saying things, and Robert Forster's like, hey, man, stop yelling at your team, they're with you. And he's like, don't fucking tell me how to run my police agency.
Well, on top of that, he's also trying to hide the fact that his dad, who is a legend, is getting Alzheimer's, and he's forgetting things, and he's, like, totally fallible. And so he's trying to, like, protect him at, like, every turn, and also trying to do his job and doing all of this stuff. And then he's a dad on top of that, and, like, he knows he's a terrible one.
He's trying to protect his dad, and he's trying to protect the town.
Mm-hmm.
And he feels like...
And then his daughter.
His inability to catch the wolf is, like... his failing as a man, and he starts drinking, and he gets his daughter for the weekend when he's trying to find the werewolf killer. And like there's a really great scene where she's making out in the car with her boyfriend, and he shows up trying to shoot the werewolf with a shotgun, and he sees his daughter, like, you know, in her panties, like having just escaped from the werewolf, and he's like starts screaming at her, and she's like, I'm bleeding from the skull, you know, like that's all you care about is that I left the house, like I almost died. And he realizes, like, what the fuck is happening to me? And, like, the movie's great because he starts to lose his humanity, and he realizes that. And at the end, he wolfs out himself. He doesn't turn into a werewolf, but it's pretty fucking raw what happens. And this movie really needs to be seen to be believed. Where was this movie, by the way?
On Tubi, guys. It's on Tubi for the win. The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Tubi.
Where's that Tubi check? Oh yeah, thanks. Okay.
Yeah, like guys, seriously, this one is not like you're not gonna guess it 5 minutes in like Werewolves Within.
Werewolves Within is not trying to trick you. It's pretty fucking upfront.
Yeah, it's just straight to the point. This one, like, you're probably not. You think you're gonna know what's up. You're not gonna know what's up. It's fine, and it's magical.
It's a great movie.
Also really pretty.
It is gloriously shot. I kept calling this movie the Wolf of Snow Point. I also kept calling it the Wolves of Eastwick. You know, which should.
I had to look that up to see if the Werewolves of Eastwick was an actual movie because I thought maybe I was missing something.
It should be a movie. It should be a crossover with what's it called, Wolf of Wall Street. But like one of them becomes a Wolfman, and then he goes to the Witches of Eastwick to strike up a witchcraft merger. You know.
Oh my god! I would watch that movie.
We could write it, you know.
I mean, the cherry pit scene would have whole other meanings. Except it would probably be raw meat because, you know, werewolves, it's fine. Meat cubes. I want to feed meat cubes to the cute little baby werewolf in good manners. Like, I want a baby werewolf, guys, like, so bad.
So is the baby werewolf more or less cute than Alf, is the real question.
Oh my god, that's, like, not even a competition.
So
like, I would snuggle it. I would, yes.
So which of these movies is the best of the worst?
I mean, quite honestly, I don't think any of them are bad, though.
No,
I mean,
no.
even the Wolfman, like 2025, isn't horrible.
Well, my
Which,
issue with the Wolfman is just like how by the numbers it is and how
yeah,
much better it really could have been. Just judging from the 4 other movies we watched from the last 5 years, you know?
well, and most people don't know that these other movies exist.
Which is why we're doing this, because we love
Yeah.
monsters. We think monsters are the best. See that guy up there? That's Splinter. He's the main character of my fantasy series. He's a bat demon. Oh yeah, and Adrian painted him because she's the best. Yeah, we love monsters. Monsters are the best. You should watch all these movies.
The Wolf of Snow Hollow, that one should probably be on the top because it's definitely a whodunit. It's definitely quirky. It's definitely weird. It's pretty, but it's very human. And the one thing we didn't mention about this movie was the deputy chick.
I do want to say, like, I am someone who, I think police needs to be reformed, whatever.
100%.
But yes, I think, the ACAB, all caps are bastards thing, I think it's a bit much. We need police. But I do think that, I am critical of the police in a very broad sense. This movie is about, it's not a police procedural, but it's about how hard it can be to be a police officer who's trying to do the right thing, There is a conversation to be had about propaganda, whatever.
From what I know about the police department and some of my personal experiences, I would say that there is a huge issue with mental health and taking care of your mental health. It is very frowned upon. Like if you see a therapist, like they don't, like you'll basically get shunned or made fun of, or, it's like a whole thing. I honestly think they should just give therapists out, especially in traumatic jobs like being a police officer or a fireman or EMS.
Yeah.
Like they should hand therapy out like candy.
Sure.
I think that would make a huge difference. Like, and then there would be no stigma. Like you mandatorily, like every single one of them just has to see a therapist. But here's the other thing. Like this movie really highlights the trauma of the job, the pressure of being a police officer, even in a small town, and then like trying to be a regular person on top of that and how it all doesn't balance. Like there's a lot of that in this movie, and I find it very human.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like having to carry the safety of an entire town and catch a killer, that's too much responsibility for one person,
Yeah,
and that's his job. Like
I know.
Yeah, so great movie, really great stuff. Yeah, check out all these movies. I mean, they're all fantastic. The Wolfman is good too. It's just
it's not as the others. However, if you really want some good Wolfman stuff, I suggest some Paul Naschy movies, but that's just me.
That's another video.
I had to mention Paul Naschy because he's my dude.
Yeah, that's another video. Yeah, we're Paul Naschy versus El Santo.
Please that would be the most brilliant thing ever.
God, Paul Naschy, man, what a trip. He fucking.
I don't know why I like him so much.
He became a werewolf because he was bit by a yeti. I mean, what the fuck,
I know exactly.
Yeah. Who's better, Santo or Paul Naschy?
I'm gonna have to say Paul Naschy just because he's my dude.
Yeah, but
he was my screensaver on my phone for like ever. I also have.
I know, but Santo like invented a time machine and he like fought a bunch of werewolves in the ring. Him and Blue Demon had a wrestling match against Dracula and the Wolfman. So.
Okay, so we all get excited when we get new werewolf content because, especially in the big screen, because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Like we don't get a whole lot of epic werewolves. It happens like once every full moon, right?
I think it's really just because werewolves aren't sexy like vampires are. They can be, but no one wants like hairy women. I mean, I don't have a problem with it personally, but.
Okay, Ginger was hot when she was, and so like Striba for life.
I mean, I dated a girl who never shaved her legs, and I didn't have a problem with it. Everything else was fine. I mean, even that was like, I don't know. They were nicely shaped. But
love your monsters, guys. Love your monsters.
Yeah, love your monsters. So yeah. So point being, it's a neglected subgenre, but
it's not actually. they are doing really innovative things with them. You just have to like.
You gotta look. It's a neglected
You gotta
subgenre,
look.
and you know, I mean, hey,
They're out there.
they're
The
out
good
there.
werewolves are out there, man. The truth is,
We're not stuck watching The Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf over and over again.
don't say stuck, because Sybil Danning is like a whole thing. And Christopher Lee, come on, man.
I mean, I've watched that movie more than like Frankenstein. I mean, that's a
I
great
actually
film.
got my picture.
Write poetry, make art, love your monsters, Ave Satanis. Also,
David Duchovny, why don't you love me?
Also, monsters are fucking great.